Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up. All the way up. I'm all the way up. I'm all the way up. Nothing can stop me. Good morning, Vietnam. My name is Mayer Dallal. Welcome to the Money Matrix podcast, where smart money finds a smarter way. Today we have with us our resident Arizonian, Jason Rod.
How you doing, everyone?
And our resident Californian, who is getting ready to fall into the fire in this next episode. So let's see what we got coming on. Today's going to be very interesting because we have some interesting topics to talk about, some controversial, some things that I'm curious to see how Alan is going to roll with, because he lives in one of these 19 cities that affects everything that's going on. So first, we're going to talk about July's numbers that came out, CPI, PPI, and effects on the housing market and what we think is going to happen with the rates. We're going to be talking also about gerrymandering, changing of borders, changing of all of the congressional seating and the census, along with eliminating non-U.S. citizens and illegal aliens. And then finally, we're going to be talking about the Trump-Putin Alaska scenario to see what's happening with that and the ramifications of that with regards to the United States economy. Am I missing anything, Alan, or is that everything we have?
I think that's it. I hope that it's informative, but at the same time, I hope we get a lot of discussions. I'm very curious about Jason Rod's takes on a few of these items.
Bring it on. Happy to share.
Let's start. You're the numbers person, so really let's get into this CPI, PPI, explain what CPI is, explain what PPI is, and then we can roundtable it.
Yeah, so the CPI is the Consumer Price Index. In very simple terms, it's what you and I pay for stuff. And the PPI is the Producer Price Index, which in simple terms is what the producers and businesses pay for things.
Like Walmart, Costco, Home Depot, where we buy the stuff from.
That's exactly right. CPI numbers came out on Tuesday last week, and they showed overall that tariffs were not hitting as hard as everybody was kind of afraid that they would. The exact number was 2.7% inflation every year, and economists were projecting 2.8. So it came in below expectations. However, the PPI came out on Thursday, which is the Producer Price Index, and things actually showed to be the opposite. The PPI came in at 0.9% higher month over month, and 3.3% annual PPI. So overall, it was confusing signals where the Fed is looking to see if inflation is still going, if inflation is out of control or controlled. And we have one side saying it's not so bad, and one side saying, hey, this could actually be bad. So
but
what were your takes on it?
That 0.9% increase is a blowout compared to what they were expecting. No one was expecting to be that high. The last time it was such a high reading was June of 2022. For me, I would love to see the PPI first and then the CPI. Unfortunately, they always do the CPI first. When the CPI came out on Tuesday of last week, we're like, okay, this is great. The tariffs are not affecting anything. And then when the Producer Price Index came out on Thursday, the other shoe fell. Are you waiting for the other shoe to fall? Well, it did fall. And the consumer hasn't felt it yet. But the general consensus is, how much can retailers absorb without passing it on to the consumer? The consumer is not going to see it immediately, but if this is an indication of where it's going to be, the consumer is going to feel it. The biggest area that was affected was services, and that was up 70%. A lot of people are saying, what does that really mean? What does that equate to? They were talking about bank fees and money management fees, etc. They were the highest it's ever been. It's a direct correlation if you really look at it. The stock market being so high and everything being so high, the asset valuation, of course, the fees are going to be higher because the market went up. So you really can't look at that on the face and say, wow, that's a problem. But there were other restaurants and other service-oriented airlines and steward and all of that thing, which was of concern. But really, what message does this send to the Fed? What's your opinion on that, Jay?
Well, my thoughts are that we need a better source of data for the Fed to work off of. But particularly when it comes to rates and what's going on, I believe they're still going to play cautious. I don't think there's going to be a 50 basis point hit on this. I think it'll be a quarter point if they're going to go ahead and do it. Depends on the pressure he's getting. All the data is pushing him towards that. But I'm honestly a little bit concerned. We keep waiting on this great pumpkin of the inflation to be affected by the tariffs when every time they keep moving the goalpost, because when the data is supposed to reflect it, it doesn't. And then this one, by chance, reflected a little bit, But like you mentioned, it was in services, right? Not as much in the goods. How much longer can they wait? That's what I want to know.
I mean, I agree with you. My concern is Powell has been so hawkish for so long, and the Jackson Hole meetings, the commentary and everything is coming out on Friday. What my concern is, unless he outright says, yeah, we're going to rate cut, we're going to have 2 to 3 rate cuts this year and everything is golden. Outside of that, anything he says is going to be deemed as more of a hawkish type of stance. And I think that the market's not going to react well to it at all, because everyone, the stock market, people are banking on at least a quarter point cut. The last number I heard was 86% is looking at a quarter point cut. Some people are saying 50, but I doubt that. It's more for the consumer confidence. That's really what it comes down to. And to show that the Fed is on the same page, because you have a handful of Fed governors that are already saying we should have cut already, we need to cut. And when you have mixed signals amongst your team and it's clearly expressed, that's an issue in my opinion. I think once you start sending those messages out, you're going to lose the confidence of everybody around you.
With consumer confidence now where it's at, everyone's kind of feeling as if they're their own expert, trying to make sense of a market that doesn't act anywhere near the normality that it did prior to COVID, trying to make our best guesses of what's going to happen. But consumer sentiment on this, I personally have clients that are waiting to see this big rate cut come out, and just the ripple down effect it has on people and the economy, and how much it literally costs individual people. It's scary, but I think it's going to be a quarter point. That's what I'm going with, a quarter point.
Alan, your thoughts?
I have exactly the same issue where we have clients who are like, yeah, I think I might wait to close until September because there could be a rate cut. But that's not going to be some massive change in rates. It's just this mental idea that we've been on this hill for so long that we could see the other side. Like you're saying, that confidence is going to change so much. So I think there almost has to be a cut. I would agree with the quarter. I think the idea that waiting for the tariffs is interesting because you're right. Those goalposts have moved. It was originally tariff, what was it, Independent Day or whatever, where we had the tariffs on everybody. And then it was like, we have to see what this does. And then the next month it was like, everybody bought stuff because they were scared of the tariffs coming in. And then it was, we actually took the tariffs off. So there wasn't really actual data. And that keeps moving further and further down the line, where if we are going to see the impacts, maybe the PPI bleeds into the CPI next month, but we've now waited, 4 months and we haven't seen them. So
do you guys think that he's doing it out of obligation and not out of data?
You mean Fed Chairman Powell?
If he cuts, do you think it's out of obligation and pressure and feeling Donald Trump behind him? Or do you think it's going to be data dependent? Because his whole stance is everything is data dependent.
Right. My opinion, he's data dependent. As far as I'm concerned, he can look at Trump and just shake his shoulders and be like, no, we're not going to do it because they're independent, and hold his ground and still rely on old data to make decisions that affect people today.
Here's a conspiracy theory. Let's just say Powell comes in and says, hey, I'm not cutting. The PPI is something to be really worried about. It's going to transfer over into the CPI, and our inflation is a problem. And the first thing is, what about the labor market? If you do this, you're going to head a tailspin. Our numbers are inconsistent. Our president just fired the head of the BLS because they said our numbers are not consistent and we can't depend on that data. So the only thing I have to go for now is the CPI and the PPI, and clearly the PPI is a direct correlation to the CPI. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we have to remember that the BLS numbers, to say they're inaccurate is like half of the story. The first number is inaccurate. Even the second number is inaccurate. But eventually we get the full picture. Like we get the final number after all the revisions. So if we cut out all the BS of things were revised down, everybody got mad, whatever, the last final numbers for the last 3 months were bad, not inconsistent, not unreliable. They were bad. And if you're looking back 3 months ago and the job market's bad, and we've had revisions downward for the last several months, is it not safe to say the job market would still be bad? You can't say the BLS numbers are inaccurate, just they're late.
I would come up with the solution for that, and is don't give us the first numbers, don't give us the second numbers, just give us the revised version, and don't let the people that are in the market investing their monies and buying homes and doing these types of things pay the extra. The market reacts. And it's ridiculous. It's unfair to the American people to continually penalize them for their inadequacies of being able to supply data to the people and make informed decisions.
We got to scrap the whole BLS because their whole system of gathering the data is flawed. If he really wants to put the screws to Trump, he could really say that and use it against him just to do. But again, is that just fighting with the fight, or is it real?
Do you think he cares about politics? Because his job is done in what, 1 year?
May.
Less than?
Yeah,
May.
less than-
Yeah.
May of 26.
I don't think it's political for him. I think he's very data driven, numbers driven. If anything, it makes him a little more rebellious to submit to the pressure. Even when they're talking about the construction at the Fed, right? He was making faces, correcting numbers. President's pulling out paper, calling out numbers. He's challenging him on it on national TV. I don't think he really cares. It's a perception issue.
For us, we've already priced in a 1/4 point rate cut. So whatever
Yeah. Right.
rates are now, you're not going to see any change. It's more of a perception thing than anything. It's a psychological, hey, we're in that downward trend now rather than the upward stance. So
Meyer, just for the people, and sorry to interrupt you, but you're so well spoken on this when we say the 25 basis points is already padded into the system. For our listeners and the people out there that follow us on Instagram, whatever else, how can they easily understand when they say that they're going to do a 1/4 base reduction? How does that affect the mortgage industry, credit cards, auto? Where does that 1/4 point really affect you in your pocket today when that happens?
So the mortgages, in my opinion, are not going to get affected at all. You might see a slight change. You may see some in credit card. You may see some in auto financing. They may pass it on, but that 1/4 point is really bank-to-bank borrowing. It doesn't translate to us specific to the mortgage market. It's baked in already because the market understands that if rates were to come down a lot, people are fickle. There's a cost of doing business. If you buy a loan as a servicer, you're JP Morgan, you're Goldman Sachs, or any of these large institutions, you're buying this paper for a long-term yield and the maturity. It costs you money to onboard it and set it up, and you have a life cycle before you start earning back your money. And if people are very fickle, so for a 1/4 or 3/8 of a point, if it's an immediate correlation, it could trigger refinances. And if the rates were higher, they would run off on all of those higher rates. So rates are almost artificially held down now to prevent any type of runoff, to prevent any type of premature refinance boom because of the fear that they're going to end up losing all this money because of that. So that's why I feel the mortgage market is not really going to see a major improvement in rates if a 1/4 point comes.
At what point do you feel, how much does it have to come down to where you feel, in your opinion, that it'll start affecting our buyers and refinancers in the housing market?
I think you need 2 rate cuts in a row. It's not a number. It's more of the general perception of the market. If you get 2 rate cuts in a row, then people know this is serious now. This is going to happen. There's camps that think there's going to be 2 cuts. There's camps that think that there's going to be 3 cuts, and there are camps that think there's only going to be 1 cut. No one really knows, right? It's all going to be dependent on the data. But from a experience perspective, once you have 2 cuts in a row, then I know you have something real to talk about. That's my opinion.
Excellent.
I actually think if something does happen, like you're saying, it's already priced in, but I feel like there would be an optical cut, like rates going down an 1/8 or something, just so it can look like we reacted. Because if you tell a client, oh, rates didn't change, they're going to be like, what are you talking about? Even if it's a small haircut, just the optics of it. But I agree with you in that it makes no sense to plan for otherwise. And I think it's only going to be 1 cut, but I'm curious what you guys think. What if he comes out and he just walks out on stage and goes, there's no cut? What does that do? How do your clients react? What's that going to do?
Stock market's going to tumble. Your bond yield is going to spike, and your dollar is going to strengthen, and there's going to be pandemonium.
So he can't do it, right? In my opinion, the pressure is now on not because of numbers anymore.
If the numbers keep going the way they do, right? If the labor numbers keep going the way they do, you're going to tread recession type of scenario and a crash landing versus a soft landing. And that's really the problem. So let's move on to the next topic. The Putin, Zelensky, and this whole Ukraine, where Putin and Trump met in Alaska, and then They came back, and then Zelensky was here with all the United Nations people. What are your thoughts on that? I'm very curious to see, because today I heard Putin doesn't want peace. He doesn't care. He's not doing it.
I'm curious to hear Alan on this one first, and then I want to pick at it.
What I really want to know when we get to the end of this conversation is how you guys think this affects us, because it's a story we've talked about for years now, and I want to know, why do we care so much now? Because I know you have great points on why we should care. The meeting on the weekend with Trump and Putin alone was disastrous optically. It was bad. But then we had the meeting this week with the EU. I think we have this weird pull and take. Trump originally came out tweeting out when he first got elected. He goes, was it Ukraine started the war, they just need to give up? And then he comes back later and he goes, Putin's killing all these innocent people for no reason. He keeps seesawing back and forth. Sometimes he says things that are great and sometimes he says things that are not great. And so now it's hard to pinpoint where he really feels, but I'm sure you guys think he has like this master plan for what's going to happen. Does anyone know what it is?
Stop the dying. That's something he's been consistent on his message about the whole time. He wants to stop people dying. That's the big thing. Putin hasn't been in the U.S. since 2015. Comes down for a meeting that Trump had set up and has opened up negotiations. That is huge. Leader of the free world and Putin, leader of his world. To me, it's crazy to pick apart the fact that they have private conversations. I think the press is a little entitled on that because not all business is done in front of press. It is a relationship-based thing where they trust each other and they're respected. You look at the quotes from the world leaders that came to this meeting, and they're all thanking Trump for doing that and opening it up, offering things with securities and whatnot, which is what they really needed. Zelensky was grateful.
The world and the U.S. benefits clearly from energy prices. And between Russia and Ukraine, the amount of wheat that they produce, it's majorly affecting the prices of a lot of things in the United States and throughout the world. So yes, he wants to promote peace, but there's a ulterior motive to what's happening to make sure that we can sustain and create America to be the superpower that it is, and it's shaping up to be further. Yes, all deals are going to happen, I think, when it comes to Trump. He'll tell you what he wants you to know, and the rest, no one's going to know. And it's going to be a negotiation. It's going to be like, all right, I'll give you some meme stock. You just do this. Let's get some oil. Let's figure it out. And let's stop killing, and then we'll make it on the back end. There's something to be said about, yes, you want to be a humanitarian, but there's a vested interest. Trump just doesn't do anything for the sake of just doing. There's always an agenda. There's always a one-up. And it's not for him. I think it's truly for the country. Anything he does is the country-based driven type scenario. I wish I could say Putin is a reasonable person where you're going to be able to see something quickly. I just don't think so. And he even said it himself. He said, I underestimated it. I thought it would be an easy settlement. He said, this is the hardest thing I've ever done.
Let's realize the scope of where we're at now and understand the process moving forward. It's going to rely on all the European Union, Ukraine stepping up. Now we have Putin stepping up. There's movement where it's been stagnant and it's just been constant killing throughout this, 2.5, 3 year war. I think we can all agree across the board that needs to stop. How it gets done and who brokers the deal, I don't care. And as for what's going on with Trump making sure that there's an interest for America in this, 100% I believe that's why there was the minerals deal and everything that we did with them before. That's why we're selling weapons to the UN. The UN is going to distribute it. We're going to back them up with securities. And I think that's a big point to say that we're in the same room working towards a solution.
No, I agree. So we have the whole concept of the whole gerrymandering and realigning districts and zones in Texas. And then California came and said, no, we're going to do it. And you have Democrats getting arrested for not serving their duty. And then it comes into, there's going to be a new census. There's going to be no mail-in voting at all. It's got to be manual voting. And you can, if you're not legal citizen, you cannot vote, period. So there's a lot to unpack here, but I just want to start it off by one stat that I heard. I didn't 100% fact check it, Alan, because I heard it literally right before we got on. But it says here, 60% of all illegal aliens live in 20 cities throughout the United States. And of the 20 cities, 19 of them are Democratic cities.
I bet one of them's Miami.
Definitely not. And then
I bet it is.
I'd be shocked if it is. It's definitely California, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Illinois, parts of Illinois. Only 37% of legal people who have citizenship or some form of legal status live in those cities. That's big.
I haven't looked that up, but that's crazy to think about.
That's
Imagine
11
they're just
million,
so
11 million people. And now Trump is really pushing this. And if he can get this through where there's no mail-in ballots and he's pushing hard for states to adopt it, if you control the House, I think he can get it done. That's what I'm understanding. Again, I'm not 100% clear on this, but if you can control the House, he can get it through. And the Democrats are done. The majority of those heavy 19 cities are in states that pull a lot of House votes and Democratic votes, Congress. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. I'm curious to know, Alan, what is this whole gerrymandering? I know we had a conversation about it. What's going on?
gerrymandering. We looked this up the other day. It's very fun. The name comes from, like, in the 1800s, some senator whose name was Jerry redrew a map to get more votes for something. And some political cartoonist wrote a cartoon and described it like they drew him as a salamander because the map was shaped like a salamander. So that's where the term gerrymandering comes from. And they redraw the district maps. So certain neighborhoods are cut off where the votes in this area make this district red or blue. So it looks like your population is red or blue, even though it's like this weirdly shaped Q upside down G instead of a square block next to a block. So you can make your state look like it's red or blue, even when it's, say, 50-50. You know what I mean? Started out with Texas because Trump comes in and he goes, midterms are not looking great. He works with Texas on this plan to redraw these maps. Texas proposes it. The Democrats leave. The Democrats go to Ohio or something. Texas brings them back. I think they arrested some of them. California comes out.
$500 a day because they left their post.
And
Right.
now that they're back, they've all been assigned a police officer to be with them to make sure that they come back.
Wow. Texas did that. California's, we're going to do the same for the same number of seats the other way. So hopefully the net is even. I personally don't support either side doing it. It's frustrating because I want to be the bigger man and say California shouldn't do it. But I don't want to sit here and be like, we should just take the loss on everything because the other side's going to be scummy, and we're not. Eventually, you do have to fight, right? So I don't support either side doing it, but if one's going to do it, equals equal.
So how many of the Democrats are being eliminated from their positions in this gerrymandering that's going on? And then
like 5 Texas Democrats go out and 5 California Republicans go out.
And in California, what is the percentage of the House for Democrat and Republican?
That's a great question.
Isn't it heavily weighted Democrat, according to my research?
Let me look. Democrats versus Republicans in the House. Hold on a second. Newsom's California region.
And I'm leading to why they want it to go to the people, because it'll be the same people voting for the people who voted in.
While I look this up, you guys should talk about it.
Mail-in stuff. Because if you got to be a citizen or some form of legal status, then you can't vote. So they're not going to be able to vote it in or out or whatever.
Going back, are we confirmed that Trump went ahead and called Governor Abbott and told him this is the plan? Or is that the media saying that's what he wanted?
Back to your first point, it's 43 out of 52 seats. So 43 Democrats out of 52, meaning that there's 9 Republicans.
And they want 5 more seats. Super
48
fair.
out of 52.
Super fair. What's it for Texas?
Neither side is fair. I'll look that up, but neither side is fair. I'm not going to defend California doing it. I don't think it's fair.
I'd be interested to know, out of the states that want the mail-in voting, how many Democrats to Republicans are in those states? And do they have a no ID needed for mail-in voting?
Needed. You mail in, you can be a random person and they can't check your legal status.
They can, though.
Selectively, they're not.
Have you seen all the things that happened in the last election with all the people that were going around and getting signatures and collecting ballots and turning in tons of ballots for people? I don't know if that's ever been looked into 100% yet, but I know that there's been prosecutions. I think it's ballot harvesting. Is that right? There's a big problem with ballot harvesting, and it just leads me to think that the system isn't set up correctly yet, right? Although the states can make these decisions going in and out of requiring voter ID, I would lead back to how these states are setting up their systems for no voter ID needed, and how many of those states are Democratic, Republican.
I think it should be straight up unilaterally across the board. You need legal status to be able to vote. How could you not have any status and still vote? That's
so
crazy.
2 questions for you guys. If we're like no voter ID ban, you have to have ID always on you in person to vote. Would you support ID being federally given out for free to everybody, mailed to you?
But you have to provide the information for the ID. I mean, with all the
totally
things,
fine as long as you can get it.
Yeah.
As long as we could stop supporting crazy things in other countries without being controversial, if we could take that funding and put it towards everyone getting their ID, absolutely. Because I think it's a law. Is if you're 18 and over, you're supposed to carry your ID anyway.
That is.
Question for you guys. Do you have any idea how much percentage of the United States does not have a valid ID? It's over 20%. So you're instantly stopping 20% of the population from voting. Second question for you guys.
CNN
But you
anchor.
don't know, but
No.
you don't know of that 20% if they're legal citizens that could vote.
This
Also-
is purely legal citizens. And second question for you. Do you know how many illegal immigrants casted a vote in the last 40 years?
It's hard to tell with the no ID check for
Well,
mail-in voting.
But
That's hard to
you
tell.
can't go back 40 years. You have to go back from when Biden really opened up the borders, because that's really a true reflection of what happened. Previous, it
11
was never,
million.
it was never that bad, but now you have 11 million undocumented people that live in 19 cities that are Democratic haven cities that swing a vote any which way possible because they represent the majority. That's crazy.
Okay, so what if I told you that after the 2016 election, the Brennan Center for Justice, which is all about voter rights, surveyed the 42 highest jurisdictions of immigrant populations in the entire country and found that of the 23.5 million votes cast in the 2016 election in those jurisdictions, 0.0001% equaled 41 cases out of 23.5 million.
What I'm saying is Biden opened up the borders and you let everybody in. And this is what's swinging the votes and affecting it. Biden
Yep.
won. Biden won. But what happens, though, is the primaries and all of the other swing type of stuff that happens, the census and all the intermediary stuff that matters, that makes a difference. If the Republicans don't win the midterms, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a big problem
For
the
who?
United States, in my opinion. There's going to be a lot still to accomplish. He has an agenda. A lot of people are starting to believe in that agenda. His approval rating is very good, comparatively speaking.
Actually, I think it's the lowest point ever right now. Let's look that up.
Lowest point ever from the record. The stock market's crashing. Oh, wait.
Reuters
it was
actually
at its
released-
ever yesterday.
Reuters
Yeah.
actually released a poll yesterday. Trump approval rating holds at 40%, the lowest level of his term. Hispanic approval has dropped to 32%. 54% of people believe Trump aligned with Russia in the Ukraine argument. 42% approve of Trump's performance on crime. Trump's approval rating was unchanged in late July, but has dropped 7 points since his first days back in the White House in January, when 47% of people gave him a thumbs up. So
They need
it's
to
lower
stop
now.
polling in California.
You can't discount parts of the country because you don't like them.
I'm always data driven, and where these polls come from, it needs to be more transparent. For me, it's what's best for the country, and I align more with the things that are happening now in order to keep us safer and build the economy moving forward. Increasing the tariffs, yes, we're worried about inflation overall, but we're having record numbers come in from tariffs. We now have the ability to not be negative monthly or annually is what we're on track for on those tariffs. Money coming in, we're going to be positive, not negative, where we could start putting money towards things for the American people, paying down our debt for our children, and looking forward 30, 50 years. Not I'm in power and this is what I'm doing. Let's look at the future and look at it overall open-mindedly.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate
You can vote
it.
for me here.
You can find us at Instagram at GoMBank, GOMBANC. The Money Matrix podcast is on our YouTube, and we're on TikTok as well. If you have any questions, comments, please reach out. Thank you so much, and God bless.